Welcome in to the Blue Coats Beat. We are back with another episode. I'm Matt Murphy, and I know the Blue Coats ambassador of basketball, Joe Richmond, and I are very pleased to be joined by a longtime Philadelphia 76ers player, an all-star, and a former 76ers color commentator, the mayor, Steve Mix. We're really looking forward to this one. Steve, we're going to jump right into it. Thanks for joining us today. What have you been up to most recently?
Well, about 5 years ago, we ended up moving down here to Vero Beach, Florida from Toledo, Ohio. And down here, I've been trying to put on some basketball camps down here. Not very successful, as all the sports basically is an outdoor sport down here. Your football, your baseball, everything else. Basketball is about the fifth sport down here, but I stay in shape by riding my bike, swimming, and playing golf.
Playing golf, I can appreciate that. I've been trying to get out as much as I can. And Joe, I know Steve is someone you and I have been looking forward to chatting with for ever since we've heard about it, so it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm gonna start off by I'm gonna dive right in, Steve, because man, Steve had to deal with. You owe me one, Steve. How was that?
Well, it was interesting because Doug Collins and I came in together back in 73, 74, the year after they won 9 games and lost 73. In fact, I was cut from the 9 and 73 team, but I came back the following year and made the team then. And I was a comeback player of the year, and then an all-star after that. And then Doc comes, and he takes my spot, so I become the unofficial sixth man of the year. But you know what? It was a ton of fun watching us go as a team. With Billy Cunningham and then George McGinnis and then Doc and that whole group of guys going through there. I'm thrilled to death that they were able to win a championship. But I was on the Lakers team that year that they won, so I'm like, okay, I was 0 for 4 as a guy that got into the NBA Finals, but that's okay. I got there. I know guys that played in the league for 10, 12 years that never even made the playoffs. So I had what I consider a very good career.
Wow.
Quite the comeback story at the start of your career, and we will get to your NBA and 76ers career. We'll also, at the end, touch on maybe a little bit of your big three coaching career and some other fun miscellaneous topics at the buzzer. But before we go there, first things first, with the Blue Coats being the NBA G League affiliate of the 76ers, what is your connection, Steve, to the NBA G League, formerly the D League?
I know it's interesting because what I ended up doing back in like 1990 or 92 tells you how old I am. Tony DeLeo came to me and asked me if I wanted to go around the league and be their big man coach. So I was able to go around that year and try to develop the big guys in the D League. There were some guys that I was able to help that made it in the NBA, and you talk to them, you show them things, you work with them, but you're only there for a short period of time. But I thought I was pretty successful in doing that and showing the big guys what was necessary to get that next level up.
That was for all the teams in the league?
All the teams in the league. I went around, they had a shooting coach, and then they had a big man coach, and I was their big man coach. So I traveled around to all the teams and tried to help the big guys get to the next level.
Wow. Well, how about that?
But that fits right in with who you were, Steve, when you was with the Sixers. 6'7", 6'8" bruiser. You came in, you stuck some of the toughest guys on the opposite team. You knew how to mix it up. I remember that one series against Boston where they almost booed you out the gym every time you got off the bench, because you just created havoc every time you went down there, moving bodies out the way. And I always told Matt, I know Doc had a joke with you, used to call you Sky, but you never really jumped that high, but because you were more of a position guy. You knew how to get in certain places and position yourself, playing against the Parishes of the world, the Marcus Johnsons of the world, the Maurice Lucases of the world. You just knew how to position yourself. And I was telling Matt, when we were younger and used to get the game, you and Bobby Jones, it's like you guys was coming in. It's like somebody's about to get their teeth knocked out right now.
It was interesting too, because growing up, I had 2 older brothers, and the one thing that I always tried to do, I always my oldest brother is about 8 years older than I am. So my goal was to beat him. And I was able to beat him when I was in high school. And then I couldn't beat the middle brother till I got into college, because he played at the University of Toledo as well. And I was taking a butt whooping every day from that guy. And I would show up the next day and I'm okay, here I am. I'm going to get you again. But he put me under his wing and took me to all the places that he played. And then I had a great high school coach and college coach and Bob Nichols, and then came to the NBA. And it was interesting in the NBA because I did not have an outside jump shot at the time. So my goal was to develop an outside jump shot, 18-foot, 19-foot jump shot, which I was able to do. And then in the low post, tried to develop more low post moves. So by the time I retired after 13 years in the NBA, I had 13 moves in the low post that I could go to, that I knew I could get guys up off the ground and get at least contact or get to the bucket anyway.
Awesome.
So, speaking to your development as a player, we'll talk about the NBA more in a second, but I got to squeeze in a CBA question because you did briefly play in the Continental Basketball Association.
I did.
A minor league. So I feel like everyone who either played, coached, was involved with the CBA at all has all types of crazy stories. But for those who don't know, where did you play and what was it like?
Well, it was a weekend tournament. So you would play on Fridays or Saturdays and Sundays. And if we won the game, I got $105. If we lost the game, I got $85. So I was working really hard for $20, you know. So in that league, I was playing for a team called Grand Rapids. They're in Michigan, Grand Rapids Tackers. The owner owned a carpet company. So obviously the Tackers. George Gervin was in that league, and he averaged about 48, 49 a game for half the season before he ended up going to Virginia. Guy out of Michigan by the name of Dennis Stewart averaged about 40. Dennis was my team. I averaged about 38 or 40, and our point guard averaged about 22. So the three of us averaged almost 100 points per game. But that was where I went to develop my jump shot. That was my main goal, was let's develop an outside game, which I was able to do that year.
And you won a championship as well.
And we won the championship too. So I think I got an extra $105 out of it.
And now in the NBA, you've mentioned the longevity that you had. You found your footing, more than 10 seasons, most of those coming with the 76ers. What was the turning point for you in your career? Was it that jump shot?
I think so. I think it was the ability, excuse me, to go out, recognize my strengths and my weaknesses, and take my weaknesses and try to develop those even every single day, and take my strengths and even work on those even more so. So once I realized what I could do and can't do, that's when I went out and worked on the weaknesses, because I knew that was preventing me from getting back into the NBA. And once I got back in, then it was a matter of just knowing the opponent's offense and defenses. So I knew what I could do, and the opponent themselves, whether they'd go for a shot fake or whether they'd close out on my right hand if I was on the perimeter, and what I could do from that point on. So it's a matter of understanding the opponent's offense, because I was second in the league 1 year in steals, and then also understanding the opponent and what they like to do on defensive end. Do they go for the pump fakes? Will they stay on their feet? Can I shoot a turnaround jump shot on them, or a little fadeaway?
So comparing eras, Joe, I'm bringing you in here because I know you want to talk about Steve's style of play as well as some of his matchups during his career, or the team's matchups during his career.
But I want to briefly go back to, it was so amazing that Steve, if you listen to how he's all the way around, when he was with the G League, going to different teams, and when he was teaching those guys, it was perfect for someone like him, because as you and I know, Matt, the G League is about grinding. And that's who he was. He one possession at a time, wearing your guy down to get to be the successful person you have to be so the team can be successful. And that's what the G League is about today. Those guys grinding. So they had the perfect teacher that did it on every level. And I'm glad, because I kind of see why some of those players that you did help get to made it, because they needed to hear those stories and know the type of person you were and your personality going into it. But I want to say this. you got to remember, I'm of your era, Steve. You were my hero. The Sixers, that team was me and my brother. My brother, Mike Richmond, played at UTEP. Got drafted in '87 by the Dallas Mavericks. But when he played at UTEP under Coach Don Haskins, Tiny Nate Archibald was on that staff, Tim Floyd on that staff. He also played in the CBA, my brother. He played under Charlie Rosen, Henry Bibby.
Wow. There you go.
Yes, and the funniest thing, when he went to school, you got to remember, coming up, it wasn't no 1,000 TV, so all we followed was the Sixers. And you were the same as my brother, 6'7", 6'8". You were left-handed.
Yep.
My brother's left-handed. And my brother wore number 50 when he went to college.
Oh, there you go. There you go. See, I love a guy like that, right? That's super. That's fantastic.
So my oldest brother only had you as a, you know what I mean, as somebody to compare him to.
Oh, that's funny.
Because he wasn't a superstar player. He had to grind to get to where he was.
That's funny. That's super.
Yeah, my brother I wish he could be here because he wanted to say thank you, but I want to thank you for that on behalf, because he couldn't believe I was doing this interview with you today.
Now, did he have the same motto that I did? Run fast, jump high, and shoot straight. 1 out of 3 isn't bad.
Yeah, because he can really jump high.
I couldn't jump high. That's why Doc called me Sky. Yeah. I couldn't run fast, but I could get to where I wanted to go. Yep. And boy, I could shoot the heck out of the basketball. So and he had
to develop his left hand, his jump shot, just like you. And you were the perfect example for him. So this is awesome. And I know, as Matt, I don't want to take up too much, but when we look at the G League and we watch it, Matt watches it a little bit more than me because he goes around. That's what those guys have to do. It's a daily grind. And game after game after game, series after series. Steve, when you came in with that second unit, that's what you brought to the table, man. Thank you.
No load management in the G League, is there? No load management in that league. You got to show up every night, show the guys what you got. Otherwise, you're going to be in that league for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And Joe, you bring up watching those Sixers teams, and I know you were enamored with the Sixers Trailblazers and that whole matchup as well.
You got to remember when Steve played when it was the East Coast, you still had the Rockets and the Spurs was in the East back then.
Yep.
Back in '79 in those days, and it was the Washington Bullets, not the Wizards at the time. So he was going up against some great guys, and then it transferred because when the Bucks came in, the Sixers in the Bucks series probably to me was more brutal than the Sixers and the Celtics.
That was just a tough matchup all the time. That was a good matchup.
Yes, it was.
They couldn't beat us, but it was a good matchup.
But they took us to 6 and 7. They gave us a fight.
They did that. Yep, no question.
And Steve, a lot of Dr. J stories from you, I'm sure. But I want to bring up the big three, because you ended up helping coach Dr. J's squad in Ice Cube's The Big Three League, if I have that correct.
Yes. Yep. And it's interesting because when Ice Cube started that a couple of years ago, they got their coaches, basically they're all Hall of Famers. And Clyde Drexler was there that year. He's the commissioner now, but George Gervin, Gary Payton, Rick Barry, guys like that are the head coaches that first year. So Doc called me and asked me if I wanted to be his assistant coach. And, after taking a look at it, obviously I said, yeah, if you're there, I'm there. So it's been a lot of fun being part of that Big Three League, being his assistant coach. We've had a lot of fun together, just continuing to be great friends that we are, and enjoying the heck out of each other's company.
And you even coached one of our former guys in Delaware, Nate Robinson, who spent some time in the G League in recent years.
Nate's a trip. Nate's a trip. There's no doubt about that. He's a funny guy. I'll say this. He's spirited. That's probably a pretty good word for Nate. He's spirited, but he's very talented. And I always felt, just watching him play, coming off the bench for an NBA team a couple of years ago, I think he could have done that, but it's hard to get a Big Three guy back in the NBA once they're gone. But he's a tremendous player. Then we got Mari Stoudemire on the team too. All these guys are very nice guys. They really are very, very nice and kind. Go out of your way to help you and do whatever you need to have done.
So I want to get to our final few questions in a moment, but I feel like it might be necessary for me to leave a bit of a window here for Joe to squeeze in any more Sixers questions or points right now. So take the floor, Joe, if you got anything else on the Sixers side of things.
Yeah, I got two things. I got two things for you, Steve. First of all, how was it? Was there any hazing or any going after Lionel Hollins, knowing that 2 years later he kind of teamed up with the family, and then he comes over? I always looked on TV and wondered, I wonder if they ever messed with his locker or moved his sneaks. Did you guys ever have anything?
No, you know what? That's something that we never really did. If the players just wanted to play hoops, they wanted to get out on the court and play. So it was the group of guys. It was a group that when we went to a different city, traveled to a different city, because we would catch a flight about 3, I don't know, depending on where we were, but we would get there and there'd be always 6 or 8 of us or so though that would always go out to dinner.
Gotcha.
We were a fairly tight-knit group that, and then wherever everybody went after that's different. But we would generally 6 or 8 guys would always go to dinner and shoot the breeze and have a lot of laughs that way.
And my second one is, like you said, that group was so tight. It was a different era, a different time, a different way of playing, and relationships was built. And you've played against so many guys, and guys like Phil Jackson, who's with the Nets, and Eddie Jordan, Van Bredekov, Tom Donovich, they became coaches in the league and things of that nature. But I know at that time, because we were so, like I said, I was so Sixer loyal, which I am to today. But when Harvey Catchings left and he went to the Bucks, how was it to play against Harvey? And, in that relationship. And you were one of those main guys that was the bruiser, the fighter down there. How was that?
Well, yeah, when Harvey left, it's always sad to see the guys that you're friends with go somewhere. My second year in the league, I roomed with a guy by the name of Tom Van Arsdale my first year back with Philadelphia.
Yes, sir.
Tom was traded my second year. And I really felt bad that Tom was traded. And anytime you're with a guy, for a couple years and you get to know him and you get to know the family, and all of a sudden they're traded. And that's the nature of the business. It's always a sad day, but you got to go on. When you play against them, the coach, you're sitting in the locker room before the game, and the coach asks you, well, what can you tell me about Harvey? Well, Harvey's a defensive player, but he's a shot blocker, so give him a pump fake, see if you can get him up in the air, give him the 15, 18-foot jump shot if he's out there, don't let him drive right, stuff like that. So things you have to know, but you once you get on the hardwood, it's like, okay, that's it. No, there's no friends out there anymore.
Oh man, that is truly amazing. And I got one quick fun fact. I toured with the world famous Harlem Globetrotters for 5 seasons. And in 1975, the Sixers drafted one of the best in Sweet Lou Dunbar. Did you ever get the interact?
Sweet Lou. Did you play with Lynette Woodard?
No, Lynette was before my time. I came in 2007 to 2012. So Sweet Lou was my coach.
Sweet Lou was there, yeah. It was a sad day to see Meadowlark go. Curly Neal, sad days for Globies.
Yes, sir.
Steve, my final question at the buzzer. I don't know if Joe has anything else after that Globetrotters one, but what was your favorite road city during your NBA playing career? Or as a broadcaster?
West Coast normally. I liked San Francisco because we generally have a day off, and I could get a car and drive up to Napa and see some friends up in Napa and have a good time up there. You get on the East Coast in January and February. Boston, New York, not that exciting. Cleveland, Detroit, not that exciting. But San Francisco, LA was always a lot of fun, and so was San Francisco. Had a lot of friends out in the Phoenix area though too in those days. So it's always good to get into the sunshine during the season, go see some friends, and go out to dinner with them.
Absolutely.
I got one quick question, if I can, Matt.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Steve, you was there to watch Doc come into the league, and when he came to the NBA, it was like it was just something that we never seen. How was it knowing that you've been around so long to see all that euphoria that Doc, that one person brought to the league? How would you compare when Michael Jordan became who Michael Jordan was in the league?
Well, we ended up, because of Doc, we ended up being kind of like a rock group. There were tons of people that followed us, and then you had Daryl and you had World, and people wanted to get to the game early just to see our layup line, see everybody dunk the basketball. It was crazy. And then you had fans in every NBA city. There were fans that were cheering for you. So it wasn't like you were, except for Boston. Boston never cheered for you, except when we beat them in the 7th game and they said beat LA. But
yeah, that
was, and then Jordan comes in, fanfare to start with, but it certainly got a lot better for him as time went on. But I think we were the first team that was kind of like a rock group.
Yes, sir.
Even the Knicks back in the day when they won championship, they weren't like that at all. But things have changed dramatically in the NBA from the late 70s to today. There's no doubt about that.
This was awesome, and that's going to do it for this episode of the Blue Coats Beat. Follow the Blue Coats on Twitter at @blue_coats, on Facebook and Instagram at Delaware Blue Coats. Steve, thanks so much for joining us today.
Matt, Joe, appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me.
For my partner, the Blue Coats ambassador of basketball, Joe Richmond, I'm Matt Murphy saying so long, and we will catch you next time on the Blue Coats Beat.